As the saying goes, even a broken clock is correct twice a day. What's going on, guys? Carter here with Edged Mindset. This video is a reply to another video that I did months ago. I'll link it down below, not on the screen. I can't do that, but in the description, if you want to go watch that video, you can. But rest assured, I will adequately describe what I said in that video, but please go check it out as well. Now, personally, I'm not somebody that likes to kind of toot their own horn. I don't take credit for things I've done or said all that often. I never really think of anything that I come up with as being all that special. I know there's so many talented, amazing people out there. I always consider myself, just a normal person. So normally I wouldn't make a video like this, kind of calling out a correct prediction, we'll call it, even though this one's a little like, was I correct? Was I not correct? But it's still interesting. I wouldn't normally bring this up except for two reasons. One, in that original video I did, I got a lot of pushback. I got a lot of people saying, you're wrong, you're crazy, this is nonsense, you're only making this for like views, there's no validity to your statement. That's one. Two, somebody left a comment on that video and basically said, oh, hey, this is kind of coming true right now. And I didn't really connect the two things until somebody left that comment. So that's what sparked me to make this video. What is this video about? The ZBT from Microtech. So, small history lesson for all of you people, and this is going to come full circle. Ever since double action OTFs in particular were invented, there's been the race to eliminate blade play. Blade play has been synonymous with double action OTFs since their invention. Why do these have blade play? Well, mostly due to their mechanism. So how these work is, see how it's just kind of floating here in the middle? That's how it's supposed to work. So when this is connected up at the top here, it's connected to the spring. When you pull this switch down, you're putting tension on the spring, and then when it gets here, you let go of a little lever that's keeping this blade locked in place, and then that spring tension throws it down here. So the whole time that blade is traveling right here, it's not connected to anything. You're taking the force of the spring and then the release of that gate, and you're throwing it down. So you have to not only have enough momentum and force to get the blade all the way down, but it also has to overcome the spring force here and lock out. Because when you go to open it, it's the exact same thing in the other direction. You're building spring tension, you're stretching out those springs. When you get right here, you let that gate go and it flies open. And that's why when you do this, you're basically absorbing all of that spring tension with your hand here. So what would normally fling this blade down, you're stopping it. And so then it's just free floating. And then you have to fling it down and it'll lock out. So that's how these work. And so because of that, you have to have very little resistance here. It can't be super tight, but it also can't be super tight when it locks out. And that's why you have this, right? You've got this play here. It gives you buffer so that when this blade flings up, it's got a little bit of room to give that locking bar time to get in place so that it doesn't just bounce off and come down, right? So it's all kind of tuned to work, and to get it to work consistently and efficiently and handle a little bit of lint, it doesn't do well with a little bit of lint, and to handle a little bit of oil, doesn't do well with oil. It has to have some loose tolerances, and that's why you get this wiggle, and that's why you get this stretch here. So for a long time, people have tried to eliminate that play, and really the only way you can do it is by having some sort of mechanism that only comes into place when it locks out and then kind of wedges the blade in place. Now, a lot of people have attempted this. Burn Knives, he uses Paul Panak. He's a custom knife maker. He makes custom OTFs as well as other automatic knives. He's got a wedging system that he uses, and it eliminates some play, right? It'll eliminate like this direction, but it doesn't eliminate everything this direction because it's a pretty rudimentary wedge that gets put into place. Still gets pretty close. The first company or person that came up with a true zero blade play mechanism is Gavin Hawk, and I think his brother of Hawk Knives in the Deadlock. The Deadlock is the first ever double action OTF to eliminate any and all blade play, and he does that with a similar wedge mechanism, but it's a cone, so it does it in two dimensions. It does it this way, and it also wedges this way with a single mechanism. Now, of course, there's a lot of other special sauce there. He's got steel reinforcements. It's self-adjusting. All kinds of wizardry going on in the Hawk Deadlock. I don't have a Hawk Deadlock right now. I had a couple, and I sold them. So you'll just have to use your imagination. Now, okay, still doing history here. Sorry, we're 5 minutes in. Now, Microtech came out with their ZBT, which uses a very similar wedging mechanism with the cone. However, it's missing some of the finer details, and it's missing some of the steel reinforcement. And so because of that, it's not quite as perfect as the Deadlock. For example, this guy right here, I've talked about it. This is my first ZBT. If you're holding it lightly, you don't get any wiggle, right? You can listen. Nothing wiggling. But if you kind of give it some muscle, it's got some side to side. Now this is adjustable, but when I adjust it and try to get that wiggle out, then it won't lock out anymore. And if I adjust it the other direction to get it to lock out, I get that little bit of wiggle. So right here is about as close as I can get to zero blade play, which is pretty dang close, and still have it lock out most of the time. Despite that, this still fails more than any other Microtech I've ever owned. It'll fail like every maybe 20 deploys. It'll fail to lock out. And it also prefers certain directions over others and things like that. Now, the video I made before is basically predicting that I thought that ZBT wasn't going to take over all of Microtech's offerings like a wildstorm, like people predicted. Everyone predicted that these old models would be obsolete, everything would have ZBT, and it was like the second coming, right? Like this was the missing link because it was finally zero blade play that's affordable. And the video I'd said was maybe, let's not be so hasty here, because I predicted that because of how this was implemented, there's a reason ZBT-like mechanisms have never been done in a production knife. Because the Deadlock requires a lot of fine-tuning, and it requires a lot more precision parts, and it requires a lot more overhead, meaning they will have some issues, and you've got to be able to send them in, and they've got to be able to fix them for free. Now, Deadlocks can afford all of that because they're really expensive knives, and that's part of the reason they're so expensive. When you try to take that magic and shove it into a production knife that's quote-unquote affordable, you can't afford all the overhead and things like that. And so what I was predicting in that video is that they would get a lot of returns on these knives. Knives that people bought that had more blade play than they were expecting, knives that people got that they messed up with self-adjusting, knives that they got that had zero blade play, but after they used them for a while, they started to get blade play, and that the overhead of sending all these knives in back and forth, lost screws, all these things, would make these not as viable as maybe they thought. I didn't predict they would go away. I just didn't think that they would like permeate into every single model and be like the new thing. Flash forward to like a week ago, Microtech just announced the new Ultratech Gen 4. This is a Gen 3 with the ZBT. The Gen 4 is this exact knife, same chassis, same blade, same long throw, crud cutter, all that stuff, but without ZBT. Microtech literally just released a knife, a brand new model, a brand new gen that is sans ZBT. Now they're pitching it as that not everybody likes the ZBT mechanism, so they're wanting to offer all the new updates without it. Now, is that because of the reasons I mentioned? Maybe, maybe not, because we also have a lawsuit between Hawk Knives and Microtech. If you haven't heard about that, maybe you saw that coming with what I was describing here. So Hawk has a patent on that cone wedging mechanism, which is the exact, well, not the exact, maybe, I don't know. That's where you get into like legalese. Don't sue me, Tony. This is just my opinion. Little disclaimer here. Nothing I'm saying here is true. It's all made up. This is a story about two made up knife companies and what may or may not happen between them. And that's it. So don't sue me, anybody, because this is nonsense. I'm just a YouTuber. I don't know anything. I have no information. This is just me guessing. This is a story of me guessing. Very similar-ish, allegedly, mechanism in here to what Hawk allegedly uses. So there is, now this part is true, there is a lawsuit between Hawk Knives and Microtech. Now, what the Gen 4 Ultratech could be in relation to that is it could be Microtech hedging their bets, because if they lose the alleged, or no, the actual lawsuit, that lawsuit may say you have to cease and desist making that model, which in this case, so far, is limited to, actually, that's not true. There's a couple smaller production runs like the Luminary and I forget the other one. There's another fancy one that has ZBT, but this is the production model. So if they lose this lawsuit, the courts may say, hey, you have to stop production of your Gen 3 Ultratech. And so they might be allegedly trying to hedge their bets to make sure they can keep selling Ultratechs in this form factor, even if something happens with that lawsuit. And then if they win that lawsuit, if Microtech wins that alleged lawsuit, maybe they will retire the Gen 4 Ultratechs. Who knows? I don't know. What do I know? But it's possible that what I was saying may be playing into it a little bit as well. The ZBT thing may have not been the financial windfall they had expected. After analyzing what they're making with their returns and defects and the extra production costs, they might be saying, you know what? I don't know if this was really worth all of this. We were actually doing pretty dang good with our old version. And so maybe we should, offer it without the ZBT. I don't know. Comment down below. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm partially right? Or do you think I'm up in the night and this is all related to the lawsuit? Or do you think this is just like Microtech said and they just simply want to give people an option to not have ZBT for a little less money? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there is a bunch of people that are like, I don't care about the zero blade play. I just want a knife that looks like this that costs as little as possible, because that's another thing I failed to mention. The Gen 4s are less expensive than the Gen 3 without the ZBT. So I don't know. Food for thought. Comment down below. Thanks for hanging out through this giant ramble. I appreciate... Who's at the door? Huh? Tony. Tony who? Oh, shit. I gotta go, guys.